You ever notice those weird patterns in your life? Like a date that just keeps popping up at the most important moments? Well, we're about to dive into a career that's built on just that. A career with undeniable proof. A whole series of digital receipts that show this fascinating and totally repeatable pattern of success.
All right, so let's get right into it. This whole story, it all comes down to one single date. A date that shows up so consistently, it's kind of like a glitch in the matrix, you know? It's always marking the end of one chapter and the start of something new over and over again.
And that date is January 30th. So picture this. It's 2015, and Cyan Causey is announcing his last day at Harley-Davidson. But he's not just, quietly leaving. No way. He's going out on top with what he called a sales hat trick and a stack of bonuses. And this date, January 30th, you got to remember it because it becomes this major anchor point in his whole story.
Now, a pattern like this doesn't just appear out of thin air, right? It was forged on the sales floor in the super competitive world of high-volume Harley-Davidson sales. This is where it all started. This is the foundation.
Okay, so get this number in your head. 43. That's how many bikes he sold in one single month. And we're not talking about some sleepy small-town dealership. This was one of the highest volume dealers in the entire US. He, by himself, sold nearly a quarter of all the bikes that moved that month. Just insane.
And this right here, this perfectly illustrates the whole theme of this explainer. Receipts. Every single claim, and I mean every claim, is backed up by a time-stamped social media post. This isn't some story someone made up years later looking back. Nope, this is a journey that was documented with proof in real time.
And that confidence? It was there from day one. He says, I'll be talking about selling Harleys like Al Bundy does high school football. And for anyone who doesn't know, Al Bundy is this classic sitcom character who peaked in high school and just never, ever stops talking about it. So this is the kind of self-belief we're talking about here. The kind that lets you call your shot, Babe Ruth style, before you even step up to the plate. He wasn't just aiming to be good, he was planning to make it legendary.
And look at that. There's our date again, January 30th, 2015. He's making that same Al Bundy comparison, but here's the key difference, right? Unlike Al Bundy, who peaked in high school, Cyan didn't peak. He just changed sports.
But even a master can hit a rough patch. Years later, he's at a financial low, so he goes back to his old boss. He pitches this totally new marketing strategy and basically says, let me come back for one day, just one day on the sales floor to prove this works. That is a huge risk, right? Especially with the entire current sales team watching your every move.
So, the results? A massive success. 10,000 views, almost 1,000 engagements. But check this out. This is the real kicker. 54% of the views came from suggested. Now, what that means is the platform's algorithm itself found the content so good that it started pushing it out to total strangers. This wasn't just his friends and family watching. The method itself was proven to be just as powerful as ever.
Okay, so where does the story go from here? Well, it doesn't stay on the ground. The same drive, that same unconventional thinking that sold all those motorcycles, it was about to take off, and I mean that literally, into completely new, high-stakes arenas.
So, right around the time he was leaving Harley, he's up for a sales manager job. And his competition? A long-term employee. The safe choice, the predictable choice. So, while the bosses are all deliberating, he makes a move that, well, nobody could have possibly seen coming. He picks up his manager in a helicopter for a tour of the city. Just let that sink in for a second. This wasn't just some crazy stunt or a gimmick. It was a demonstration. He was saying, without saying a word, this is who I am, this is what I bring to the table. You decide.
And, well, it worked. The move was so bold, so undeniably different that he got the job the very next week. It was just a masterclass in showing, not telling.
And this is so interesting. Look at the caption he wrote himself back in 2020 after getting scuba certified. He wasn't just learning a new hobby. He was consciously ticking off a box on a list he made for himself, conquering land, air, and sea. He was actively building the pattern himself and documenting it as he went.
So the final domain to conquer isn't a physical one at all. It's the digital world of cyberspace. And this is where we get to see how the exact same principles of mastering a system can be applied to the really abstract, complex world of modern tech.
So he's faced with having to learn this super complex thing called Kubernetes. Now, instead of just memorizing a bunch of definitions, he builds his own mental model from scratch, using a TV network as an analogy. So a single app, a container, that's like one TV episode. Pods are the TV network that bundles all the shows together. Docker is the studio producing the content, and Kubernetes itself, that's the CEO of the whole network making all the big decisions. And the coolest part, when he checked his homemade analogy against the official books, it was spot on. It's an amazing way to learn, right? Understand something by explaining it in your own terms.
So using that exact same way of thinking, from first principles, he comes up with a new concept, something called branded logos. And it's an idea that takes aim at a piece of tech we literally all use every day, the QR code.
The idea is pretty simple, but it's really powerful. It's about transforming that ugly, generic, black and white QR code into the brand itself. I mean, imagine if your company's logo was the scannable link. You're embedding the function and, honestly, a bit of mystery and coolness directly into your brand. The logo itself becomes the portal.
And here it is, the Babe Ruth moment. He's calling his shot for the future. He posts this on, you guessed it, our recurring date, January 30th. But look at the year, 2026. He isn't just floating an idea, he's time-stamping his declaration about the future. It's another receipt, put on the record for everyone to see.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Land, air, sea, cyberspace? The fields are totally different, right? But the mindset, the way he approaches problems, and that undeniable pattern of success, that stays exactly the same.
I mean, when you actually lay it all out on a timeline like this, the progression is just crystal clear. It's a step-by-step journey of mastering one world and then immediately looking for the next one to conquer, with each success building right on top of the last.
And this isn't some new philosophy he just came up with. Way back in 2017, from the cockpit of a helicopter no less, he posted this quote: "The man who says it cannot be done is generally interrupted by someone else doing it."
And that quote, it just perfectly sums up this entire story, doesn't it? It's a mindset that doesn't just, accept challenges. It actively seeks out the things people say are impossible, just for the chance to prove them wrong. And that really leaves you with one big question, right? What domain is next?